the same. As she said, we are going to be talking about conflict today. I have a background in communications as well as human resource management and leadership studies. And so most of my experience with how you get people to get along with one another has to do with adults or adults in the workplace. So this invite was a rather interesting challenge in terms of saying, how do I take what I know about conflict and apply it to children that are having trouble controlling their emotions or bonking their brother or sister over the head with a toy truck. And so I will need some help from you in terms of making the transition, but hopefully I can give you an understanding of conflict that maybe is a little different perspective and help you fill your toolkit, because there are no rote set patterns or formulas that are going to work. What an awesome thing to realize that the thing that probably drives you crazy each and every day until you're at the end of your rope is part of God's plan for you to train and prepare your children to be all that God desires them to be and that you desire them to be. So let me ask you, if you believe that, why is it so darn hard? Why was I invited? Why are conflict situations with kids so difficult?
I think there are times when I know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm so tired or there's so much else going on that it's hard to follow through in a way that's what I know I want to do. I just don't have the energy to do it that way.
Yeah, and conflict management takes energy, and it takes self-discipline, and it takes patience, and when you've done it over and over and over and over during the day, it gets a very difficult level to maintain. So that's one reason. My own energy level. What else?
You might feel like something's going wrong, but you've done something wrong as a parent now that you have to deal with this conflict with your child.
Okay? So there's something that is broken. And how do I fix it? And that's a difficult thing to get my arms around too. What else?
I think sometimes finding consequences that apply is difficult in the heat of the moment. So your blood pressure's up, and coming up with a consequence that is really effective is sometimes challenging when you're maybe not thinking clearly.
How do I discipline them or guide them or come up with something that's appropriate for the situation, isn't going to scar them for life, isn't going to end up having me reported to social services, and is still going to get the desired end result? You know, the interesting thing is, and this is why I say, conflict really isn't a lot different in terms of the principles to understanding it, because the same thing is true for adults. The more emotionally charged I am about a situation, the less likely I am to use the kind of listening skills and communication skills and compromise and negotiation skills that are going to resolve the conflict. And I'm going to start with a note of encouragement, because again, as I was thinking through this, and I wanted to have some examples to share with you, the good news is you forget. Our children are now 27 and 30 years old, and I know we had childhood conflict in our home. But when I sat down and I started to try to think of them, there were so many good things that I could remember and very few conflicts that ever got out of control. It's interesting that if you again look at child development or you look at research, you know, and I remember that there's times as a parent when you say, will this ever go away? I remember when our kids were teething, our daughter Jody particularly had 4 sleepless nights for every single tooth in her head. And just when she was starting to get over that, we had Ryan, and then you got a new infant. And I still remember rolling over in bed one night and asking Terry, will we ever sleep a whole night again in our life? It just seems like this will never end. And I think we feel the same way when we're kind of rearing a child. But listen to this perspective. A child's personality is pretty much fully developed by age 5. When I was doing my master's degree research about dropouts in high school, there was an overwhelming amount of literature that said by the end of 5th grade, a child's self-esteem, coping behaviors, and study habits are so entrenched that they could predict with 90% certainty what kids would make it through school and what kids wouldn't. So when you start to think in terms of the fact that as a parent, you have 5 good years to help your child learn some of the conflict management skills that they will need for their entire life, and maybe some tweaking that takes place until they're up to about age 10, this too will pass. You're in a season of life right now that causes you to be diligent and to focus on what it is that you can to do.